In this course we have created a Stirling engine, part drawings of the Stirling engine, we have made an exploded view, and now we will make a product image of the Stirling engine. So I will open the Stirling engine, I click open, go to Stirling engine folder, and down here to open the Stirling engine scene. And to render this scene, I come up here to visualization and click render now, and we will get an image. And with the default settings, this is how the image will look like. So to render a good image, we have to change some settings. So in this exercise, we will go through the render settings and camera settings, lights and scene settings. But first, if I now will close this window and click this button, I will get a save as warning. It says this rendering has not been saved. So if I click yes to save it, I will come to the File Explorer where I can choose where I want to save the image. I can also choose the file format, and if I go to Options, I can also change the DPI, and if you are going to print the image, you must have at least 300 by 300 DPI. I click Cancel, and I will also click Cancel here. I can also right-click on the image, and in this menu I can choose Save As, Close or Keep, but I will close the image. Then if we come up here, click this down arrow, we find Render option. In this dialog box I can, for instance, change the size of the image. Now it's set to 50% size. That means it will be 50% of this scene window that we see here. And if you choose custom size, you can set the size you want, and if you are going to print the image, you must have at least 4000 by 3000 pixels to get a good print. Then we have super sampling or anti-aliasing to remove jagged or pixelated edges. So now it's set to medium. If you choose custom, you can customize the settings, and the higher value, the cleaner edges, but it will also extend the render time. Then you have global illumination, and now it's set to none, and the global illumination will affect the look of the image. So now when it's set to none, that means that when I rendered the scene, the render engine only calculated the lights in the scene, how they illuminated the Stirling engine. So if I choose full illumination, the render engine will now take into account not only the lights but also the environment, how it affects the illumination of the Stirling engine. So with the custom settings you can get a very good image, but the higher value, the longer render time. So I will click Cancel. Then we come up here, we have some buttons here. If I select background first, this dialog box will open, and these menus here represent the buttons up here. So background, now the background is set to have these two colors, a light gray and even lighter gray, so that there is a gradient tone between these two in the background. And you can change the color here if you want to. Then we have 2D texture. You can also choose to have an image as background. And you can also choose a 3D environment. And in that case you are recommended to use a HDR image file. It means high dynamic range file to get a 3D environment in the background. And then you have 3D skybox. There are some predefined skyboxes here, images. If I, for instance, choose meadow, the background will look like this. But I will use these two colors. Then we have realistic. Now ground and dynamic mode is selected. I can choose, for instance, simple shadow and reflect. And I can click OK, and I will get a glossy scene floor and also the shadow around the Stirling engine. I will go back to realistic. So if I select reflect, we see that if I'm using softening, for instance, this one, and change the softening, it will soften the reflection. If I click OK, we see that it will soften the reflection. But softening will only work when DirectX and OpenGL2 drivers are activated. And you find the DirectX and OpenGL2 settings up here in Options and the rendering menu. So I will deselect these two. Then we have rendering, and now it's set to edge display options. It's set to draw part edges, and that's what it does right now. And also smooth edges and show bold edges is my default settings, and that's what you see here in the scene. And then we have realistic rendering. These three should be selected to get a realistic rendering. Then we have show. Here you can select to show lights and cameras in the scene. Then we have camera settings. The camera I'm using now in the scene is set to be in perspective mode, and the field of view angle is based on top, front, right and fit scene. And this is the position where the camera is placed in the scene. And we have also exposure settings to change the brightness and contrast. I will click OK. And then we come up here. We have some camera settings. First we have edit camera, and we have just gone through the settings for this camera. But we can also add a camera by using a wizard, and also show cameras in the scene, and insert camera by clicking where to place the camera. And if we come over to insert light, we can insert light and also show lights in the scene. Then if you come over to the scene browser, we have cameras and lights here in the scene browser. If I expand the cameras, I have only one camera in the scene right now, but you can right click and choose, for instance, look through camera, and that's what we're doing right now. And we see that because of the red square around that icon. If you have multiple cameras, you can choose one of them and right click and look through cameras, and the selected camera will have this red square around the icon. And here you can also add a camera by using a wizard, and also camera properties that we've just gone through. Then we have the lights. If I expand the lights, we have 4 lights in this scene, and you can right click one of the lights, and we see that the light is on. It is also casting shadows, and we have a light wizard to add lights to the scene, and light properties. And here in light properties you can choose which color the light will have. And if you go to advanced settings, you have the shadow settings here. So I will click cancel, and I will also click cancel here. So this was a short review of the different settings. So in the next video we will make a product image of this Sterling engine.